ain't really wanna be goofy when it's wartime. Niggas love the clout chase, that's the shit they glorify. I don't even try hard, this gangsta shit immortalized. No records of a trace when your crime is organized. No man is over me, I'm highest in the morning time. Low key in the birds when I cross the state borderlines. Spin your block and horrified. Fuck your bitch, you mortified. I'm standing where you draw the line, nigga, hold the line. My nuts that I'm grabbing mine, both of mine, quit holding mine. You gon' get this work and some overtime, you know the vibe. Little nigga, you know it's me. I don't need them to notice me. When conflict get crucial, I can't help but do them bogusly. Smoke you like a Stogia, beat you like you stole from me. Niggas out of body, put you back where you supposed to be. I shoot at you waking in the moment, niggas toast for you. My niggas do the most for me, that's what they supposed to. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough and test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough and test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, you came with me, gang. You know what's going, stop playing with me. Real gangsters move critically when that shit get critical. No peace amongst enemies, no pity for the pitiful. Real nigga down to the bones and the minerals. Stick to the G code, I never told another soul. True to the literature, now salute the general. Kill you on your birthday, then slide on your funeral. It ain't about the clout chase, I'm a man of principle. Niggas out of body, now they body isn't critical. Cradle to the casket, the life we live is typical. God body cause I will depart you from your physical. Niggas living fantasies, act like they was the only one. Don't talk to me about these streets, fuck you think you know me from. Just cause you related to them gangsters, that don't make you one. I ain't got no bloodline in these streets, but I can spill me some. I ain't got no mercy for this bitch, that she outside with us. They on demon time, we bring them hell and the fire with us. All this smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming and who came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming and who came with me, gang. You know what's going, stop playing with me.
What's good? Shalom, shalom. What's up? What's up? What's cracking? What's good? What's good? What's up? I know y'all see the title. Yes, Ice Crazy, right? Check out the real illegals, right? Who's the real illegals, right? Because, you know, watching the news, people have been going crazy, you know, with these, you know, so-called ice raids and so forth, right? Hold on 1 second, so like it. Oh yeah, still like it. But yeah, you know, we're going down with this ice stuff, you know, and you know, it's a lot of racial undertones, you know, behind it, to say the least. And you know, like I said, you know, they've been attacking our brothers and sisters at the border and stuff like that. And apparently, ICE is only authorized to go against the brown ones, right? So yeah, just check this out real quick. But you know, of course, before we get into it, giving all praises to the Most High, we do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world mistakenly calls Jesus Christ, right? So yeah, you know, it's been crazy, you know, watching this stuff, you know, and And it's like when you look at the audacity, to actually carry out these orders and all that stuff and call people illegal, knowing the history of how they came here, right? And they should be the last ones to call anybody illegal, right? If anything, people should be rounding them up, right? If you want to be real. Um, so let's get a little history on this place, right? Because this place is a criminal enterprise, right? Known as America, and it was started, and such, what they say, the original sin of America was slavery and all that stuff, right? So, I mean, what type of mindset, what type of people would have to be around to put in these type of, to implement these type of ideas and stuff and carry it out, and execute it, right? So, right here, it says, before the American Revolution, British transported an estimate of 50,000 to 120,000 convicts to its American colonies as a form of penal labor. The practice was known as transportation and served as a alternative to harsh punishments of England Bloody Code, which prescribed death penalty for a wide varieties of minor offenses. So England was sending their criminals to America in the early centuries, right? And we read about the pilgrims and stuff and how they left for, religious differences and all that stuff, which is true, and and a lot of those because of those religious differences, they were, some of them was labeled criminals and such because they did criminal acts, to push their religious views, right? Then, besides your every run-of-the-mill variety of criminals, right? Then it says, the American colonies were used as a destination for convicts from 1610s until the outbreak of the Revolutionary War. So basically, when they declared their independence, that's when they, stopped, sending their little criminals and their unwanted, the criminally insane and all that over here, right? Which eventually became the people, the citizens of this United States. Then it says, and it says, convicts were typically sentenced to fixed terms of servitude, often 7 or 14 years. Once in America, they were sold to merchants and planters to be used as indentured servants. These labors were cheaper than both indentured whites and enslaved Africans. So some of them came over as indentured servants, and we know the history. Eventually, a lot of them became the overseers and the slave catchers, then to what we call the police today, right? And it says boom, boom, boom. Says vast majority of transported convicts, up to 90% in the 18th century, were sent to Chesapeake region, primary Maryland and Virginia. And boom, boom, boom. It says that while in servitude, many convicts endured very harsh conditions after completing their term. Some returned to Britain, but others remained in America to start a new life, hoping to escape the stigmatized past. Which they continue their criminal ways, right? Then it says, American colonists consistently opposed transportation of convicts, fearing that they would bring crime and social instability. It says colonial opposition colonies like Virginia, Maryland passed laws to block arrivals of convicts, but these measures were overruled by the British Crown. War of Independence. The practice ceased almost immediately after the American Revolution began in 1775 as colonial ports stopped accepting convicted ships. So, in the early years of this country, they were sending, convicted, criminals over here, right? And, they wasn't, so then, of course, after their little indentured servitude, they were free to go, right? And it says, it says with their prisons becoming severely overcrowded, the British established new penal colony in Australia, where transportations resumed on massive scale in 1787. So now think about this. So then they start working on Australia. And we talk about this all the time when we talk about the things that they have done. So they go to Australia and look at Australia now. Everybody that was the color of this bandana right there is no longer visible, right? Because why? They start sending their criminals over there, right? Just like they sent their criminals over to America and they killed 80 million Native Americans, right? So it says the British did send tens of thousands of convicts to the North America colonies, and it's oversimplified to claim America started by criminals of Britain. American colonies were founded by a diverse array of people for various reasons. Convicts were only a part of the colonial population. So they was there too, right? Says from the early 1700s, American Revolution, British courts transported 50,000 to 60,000 convicts to America. This system was created to ease overcrowding in British prisons and provide cheap labor in colonies. It says, boom, boom, boom. I think we read that. So yeah, as you can see, these people, like I said, a nice, good portion of the percentage of the population that came over here, were criminals, right? And then we wonder why society is dysfunctional in the way that it is. Let's get this real quick. This made this pop in my head, right? This First Maccabees. So First Maccabees, right? And this is when Alexander the Great came into power, and it says this is Maccabees chapter 1, start at verse 1. Then it says, and it happened after Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, and had smitten Darius, the king of Persia, the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in Stede, the first over Greece. So, he's the first ruler of Greece, unified the city-states and all that cool stuff, right? Then it says, and made many wars and won many strongholds and slew many kings of the earth and went through the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations, so much as the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. Says, as he's conquering nations, he's getting prideful, all that, right? Then, let's see, let's jump down to the point. Then it says, therefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him, from youth imparted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. Because he was dying, you know the story. He ended up dying from a disease. It says Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. His servants bare rule every one of his in his place. It says after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years. So now this is the point, right? This is the point. Because the Bible tells you whenever these people are in rulership, this happens. And evil were multiplied in the earth, right? So as these people come into rulership, evils multiplied in the earth. So as they sending their criminals throughout the world, the evils multiply. That's why, the Aboriginal Australians is very few. You know what I'm saying? You have the Native Americans on reservations. You have the Hispanic and Latino population scared to come back to home, back to America. Can't even walk up and down the land as they want to, right? So that's what we're dealing with. And it says, Bad Bunny announces a Super Bowl halftime show headline, announces as Super Bowl show headliners, sparking controversy among Trump supporters. Trump advisor Corey Landowski threatened ICE presence at Super Bowl, targeting illegal aliens at the event. Lewinsky criticized NFL for choosing Bad Bunny, claiming he hates America despite his Puerto Rican citizenship. Bad Bunny previously expressed concern about ICE presence at his concerts, opting for Puerto Rican residency. So they trying to get you anywhere and everywhere they think you may be at. So you gotta watch out. Gotta keep your eyes open. You never know, and that's crazy, right? That's why I like that South Park episode 2, right? Putting it out there because they tried to sponge it off the internet. That's why I played it on on air because they tried to take it off the internet, and that's my way of we keeping free speech alive around here. Anyway, it's a part in that episode where they go up into heaven and start taking out taking Mexicans out of heaven, right? Locking them up, right? It's crazy. So they'll go anywhere, right? It says lawsuit alleges ICE targets workplace without warrants. DHS dismissed as race baiting opportunism, citing reasonable suspicion for arrest. U.S. citizen Leo Garcia Venegas detained twice despite ID prompting lawsuit to black unconstitutional enforcement tactics. So this man got stopped, damn near locked up twice, being a citizen because they thought he wasn't a citizen, right? So then you got to ask yourself a question. Those of us that think this is righteous and they should, go and get the brownies. Go get the brownies. Get them all, right? You gotta ask yourself a question. Like, that's why, I was saying last time, like, we gotta understand history and how this thing go. The man done turned the ICE thing into basically the Americanized Gestapo, right? And if you're familiar with history, what was going on in the 40s over there in Europe, you'll understand, right? And it's sad that a lot of people just don't understand. They think this stuff cool. And not understanding it's a snowball effect. You know what I'm saying? It don't stop there. These people that's in charge, they are nationalists, right? And nationalists are by nature for themselves and for their people and people that look like them. And if you don't look like them, hey, Lord be with you, right? That's what you got to understand. And it says, and because a lot of people they cheering on the ICE, they're cheering on the National Guards coming into the different cities, but they don't understand the play. That's called authoritarianism, right? And like I said, we don't understand history, or we choose to forget certain things, or we look at things as isolated events and not understanding how, things transpire, right? And especially, and not understanding the political climate that this place is in currently. Like, that's why it's important to, I know I keep saying it, history. Because if you ask me, this political climate is very similar to how it was in the 60s. And if you understand what was going on in the 60s, I mean, you can probably agree. I mean, people were getting unalive in the 60s. I mean, this, in this decade, you have somebody that did, then you had one attempt on the president, or two attempts on the president, right? You have lawmakers and senators getting unalive. So this is just like reminiscent of the late 50s and 60s. But people is not waking up and understanding where we at, right? Then it says Trump administration pushes longest deportation operations in U.S. history, viewing undocumented migrants as criminals. Several U.S. citizens and illegal residents accused federal agents of racial profiling during immigration enforcement operations. Of course, is it not blatant, right? Like, it's all on TV who they arresting, right? You don't see them, where I live at, it's a lot of Eastern Europeans over here. I have not seen not one of them grab up a Russian. They over here, they got beef with Russia. Like, where is the ICE agents? Where's Vanilla Ice and his crew grabbing up all the Russians over here, right? We don't see that on TV, all right? So, of course it is, and everybody want to act like it's all about immigration instead of calling it for what it is, right? And it says U.S. colleges face a significant decline in international student enrollment, causing financial strain and budget cuts. So because all of this fiasco that's going on with immigration and ICE and all that stuff, the colleges is now suffering from their enrollment from international students coming in, right? And it says DePaul University reported a 30% drop in international enrollment, with other institutions experiencing similar declines. So, that's revenue, right? Because you need that tuition, right, to run that school. You need that alumni money, right? And they cutting into that. And it says Trump administration policies, visa difficulties, and changing attitude contribute to fewer foreign students choosing U.S. schools. Universities are implementing budget cuts, job losses, and spending reduction to cope with decreased revenue from international students. So now they gotta fire people because this man wanna, turn this place into Nazi Germany, North Korea, right? And all that stuff. And it says the White House proposed a compact for nine elite universities offering priority access to federal grants for adopting Trump agendas. So now he's offering these schools, prime access to the federal funding, first dibs, all that stuff, right? If you do what I say, right? I mean, come on now. I mean, I don't understand why this not clear to what's going on. And I don't understand why people is just I don't get it. Like, all we have to do is just look at 1930s, 1940s, Eastern Europe, Germany, and understand what's going on here. Like, I understand why that's like difficult for anybody to understand. And when I mean by anybody, I'm talking about anybody that look like us, right? Because you have a lot of people, few people, right? That's think he's doing a good job, right? Think he's doing what he's supposed to do, not knowing that they black ass is next, right? So it says compact includes gender identification, administration policies, international student caps, tuition fees, and free speech. And hold on, boom, boom. All right, hold on. Read it again. It says compact includes gender definition, emissions, admission policies, international student caps. So meaning, so you're gonna limit how many foreign students can go to the school, right? Now I bet you're not gonna be a limit on the white ones, on the Nordics. Then it says tuition freeze, and a free speech compliments. I'm sorry, a free speech. Now getting tongue tied. Free speech commitments. And it says university asked to limit international enrollment to 15%, cap 15% cap tuition, and offer free hard science programs for wealthy schools. Right. Justice Department enforced impact violations results in loss of benefits for 1 to 2 years. So it's saying it's gonna be like about this, it's gonna be like a loss of 1 to 2 years, right? And it says Texas, the University of Texas expressed interest. Other schools responses pending. So some schools I guess is considering it, right? Texas, no surprise. Says Trump proposed 10-point compact for universities offering funding advantages for compliance. So you look, I'm gonna pay you. This all you gotta do is do what I tell you. Don't let the brownies in. I'm gonna pay you, right? And again, so that's just like what they did over there in the 40s, where they changed the whole curriculum, and where it was just basically whatever they want to teach. Anything outside of what they taught was discredited, and shut down and shunned. Got rid of their political rivals, got rid of the ones who they were saying was the problem, right? So it's very reminiscent, to what was going on over there, right? And it says compact demands changes in admissions, hiring practices, free speech policies, and transgender student policies. Requirements include tuition freeze, foreign student limit, and expanding opportunities for service members. 9 universities initially target compliant schools may receive priority for grants and White House innovations, innovations and senators, incentive part of Trump's border higher education reform agenda, using financial incentives for compliance. So you're trying to pay them, right? And what I'm saying. So these people will stop at nothing to get what they trying to do. To get their what they're trying to accomplish, and that's to make America great again, like they say. And and we know that to be, they want this country to themselves, right? And that's how they moving. Hold on one second. Let's play this real quick. Let's play this real quick. So I mean that's this is from that movie Civil War, right? Um, from that movie Civil War, and and this is what we gotta understand what's going on, right? And so this our thoughts and comments. You know what I'm saying? Fair use, fair use. This our thoughts and comments on this, right? We don't want no trouble.
To use this feature, please make sure your app is ready
yeah, we got
and
the
can
audio,
access the internet.
right? I would let y'all see it, but it's a little graphic, so I'm not gonna show it. But we can hear it. So if you watch the movie, it probably sound familiar.
Your college. This guy here. Yes, that is my.
So let me explain. So now it's this part in the movie where these journalists, they're trying to make. I believe they're trying to make their way to D.C. before they can, see what's going on with the whole everything, right? If you watch the movie, so they run into this little militia, and so they got like an Asian guy with them, and so they stopped them. They like, okay, they like, all right, who are you? They like, we American journalists. Like, American journalists. Like, okay, what kind of American, right? So basically, you want to know, was they born in America? And then the ones that was not born in America, he unalived them right then and there, right? So I'm gonna let it play.
Your college. This guy here. Yes, that is my. That guy.
We're American journalists.
You told me that already.
I'm just saying.
Just what?
We're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you? Central American? South American?
Florida.
Central. What about you? Where are you from?
Missouri?
It's American. It is American. 100%. What about you? Where are you from?
Colorado.
That's what I'm talking about. It's American. Who's this guy hiding over here? What's your deal? Where are you from? You open your mouth and tell me where you're from. Just make sure it's clear fucking English, okay?
I'm from Hong Kong.
Oh, China. China! What?
You stop it! What the fuck? Stop it!
See, now, if you've seen a movie, so like I said, that's what we're dealing with, right? These people are nationalists, right? The ones that's in charge are nationalists, right? And let's get this one real quick.
The mythology of early America often portrays the first European settlers as pioneers seeking religious freedom, economic opportunity, or a fresh start. While these motivations were real, another less discussed fact is that a significant number of colonists who entered America in its beginning arrived under a criminal or penal status. In Britain and other European empires, the overcrowding of prisons, coupled with social unrest and poverty, led governments to export criminals and the destitute to the New World as a form of punishment and population control. Beginning in the early 17th century, English courts frequently sentenced convicts to transportation, a legal penalty that exiled criminals to colonies in Virginia, Maryland, and the Caribbean. Estimates suggest that between 1718 and 1775, nearly 50,000 criminal illegals were sent from Britain to North America. In some colonies, they made up 1/4 of all new arrivals during this period. In Virginia and Maryland especially, convict labor became a critical supplement to indentured servants and enslaved Africans in sustaining plantation economies. These convicts were not just petty thieves, they represented a wide range of criminal backgrounds. For example, James Dalton, a notorious highwayman, was transported to Virginia after a career of robberies in London. John Ward, another well-known thief, ended up in Maryland under penal sentence. In some cases, even political dissenters, like those who supported the failed Jacobite uprisings, were shipped across the Atlantic. Their labor was harshly exploited. Many were even forced into work for terms ranging from 7 years to life. The criminal status of these colonists complicates the heroic narratives of colonization. By today's standards, the mass migration of criminals without consent into established populations could itself be considered illegal occupation. Colonists imposed their presence through force, disregarding existing native systems of land governance. Thus, not only were many colonists criminals by their own society's definition, but their very settlement in America also represented an act of unlawful encroachment from the perspective of the people already inhabiting the land. Understanding the criminal element in colonial settlement underscores a broader truth. Early America was not solely built by idealized religious pilgrims or noble pioneers. It was also shaped by exiled convicts, debtors, and marginalized peoples exported to a land they did not choose. Their presence highlights the complex, often coercive roots of colonial America and the contradictions in...
Right, so we see they sent their criminals there. And it wasn't just a few, because it was enough to affect the ties of how this place is being ran. And you know, America, they always celebrated their criminals, right? You know, they always celebrated it.
Ravensrock, the original designer, was one of the Nazi scientists who came here. And he's one of the only Nazis who was jettisoned back to Germany by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I'm talking early, still in the 1940s. Why? His name is George Riquet, and he was being tried for war crimes. This is this amazing America needs the best, right? The end of the war, the best scientists were the Nazis. So we hire Riquet to begin designing Ravensrock, this underground bunker for Eisenhower. But you gotta find the best guy who can do it, who can build underground. And George Riquet had built and engineered, and his team built Hitler's underground bunker.
So they love criminals, you know what I'm saying? So they even went to Germany and got them a little criminal, right? That's why people like Al Capone can be a superstar in his day, because they love criminals. Hold up.
Let's talk about the dark history of why jails were created. In 1863, black slaves were freed, but it was more like a setup. After the Civil War, where 179,000 black men fought hoping for equality, the government turned prisons into a new form of slavery. By the 1880s, over 30,000 inmates were locked up, most of them black. Many were falsely accused and forced into hard labor, digging levees, building railroads, picking cotton, and mining coal for companies. Even kids weren't spared. George Stinney, a 14-year-old, was electrocuted in 1944 for a crime he didn't commit. Then, in the 1990s, the crime bill signed by Joe Biden made things worse, leading to mass incarceration that hit black and brown communities the hardest. The truth is, black people were never truly freed. Our fight for equality continues, and we must stay woke.
Right? You know, that's just the nature of the thing, right? Let's see, hold on, one more.
Why the fuck do we feel the need to jump on camera and tell on ourselves?
A nigga like this, we like the spotlight. We never get the spotlight, so I feel like once the camera come, a nigga feel like this is my moment.
We get,
and these, brothers, they kind of broke it down perfectly, right? And that's the thing. We oftentimes, since we've been here, how the Bible says, envy not your oppressor, but we end up envying our oppressor and practicing their criminal ways and stuff and emulating them, because we look at it like, okay, they got what they got by doing with the things that they had done, and they got all this power, so maybe we can do it. But nah, they build buildings and call them prison and jail for people like us that think we can do what they do, right? So, but let's listen to these brothers.
I guess the spotlight ain't good enough just for us to know and for your people to know because America has a history of glamorizing and glorifying crime and gangster shit.
That's right.
Because they
like to make it seem like it come from us.
Yeah,
like they ain't the ones that
started. Yeah,
it's the country, we didn't learn from them.
Founded on it.
Yeah.
Why the fuck do we?
And that's right. The country was founded on gangster stuff. When they came over here, hopped off them boats, right? So it's no wonder why the climate is the way that it is.
Now you go in, you could throw somebody in.
So yeah, so these, like I said, they came over here to rob, unalive, and steal, right? And that's just the ones, if you want to say not the criminals, right? Then put in then we put in account of the criminals that came over here, right? And the atrocities that continue to happen and everywhere else that they lay claim to around this world, right? That's history. That's not personal, feelings talking. That's history that we can look and observe and see, right? And another thing that's history is this: how our people got over here, our Hispanic brothers, our Latino brothers, right? And brothers and sisters, right? Because, oftentimes, like I said, they get this rap of being illegals and stuff, right? And people forget that they was here first, right? This whole thing was theirs until they got, colonized and exterminated, essentially, right? But just see how they got over here. This is our dear brother Ezra's. It's in the book of 2nd Ezra's. Let's start at chapter 13, right? And just see who's the real illegals, right? Because Ezra was back in what? I believe this is like, I want to say 600 BC, something around that time. Don't quote me. Maybe a little earlier, a little later, give or take. But it's BC, basically. The date is a BC, right? Not AD, how they say, in the year of our Lord. No, none of that. So they came thousands and thousands of years later, right? So let's see this, right? It says, so let's start at 39. So 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 39. And whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, and those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea, the king whom Salmanasseh, the king of Assyria, led away captive and carried them away over the waters. So now, if you're familiar with the history, in the Old Testament, right, the northern kingdom got taken into slavery by the Assyrians, right? And, then of course, some years later, the southern kingdom got taken by the Babylonians, right? But when the Assyrians took the northern kingdom, they never came back to Israel. They were scattered at that point. Like the twos and the fews were back in the land, because again, you can, read about them, read about a few, in the New Testament, there's a few, the twos and the fews that were still around. But majority of them were scattered at that point, right? And that's where you get, Gentiles, that part come in referring to the Israelites that are scattered, throughout the four corners, right? James chapter 1, verse 1, and so forth, right? So they were scattered at that point, once the book of Matthew starts, right? And they were over here during that time. And so it says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land into the time of Hosea, the king, whom Salmanasseh, the king of Assyria, had led away captive, and he carried them over the waters. So he took us back to their land, right? So now it says, so now what happened as we're in their land, so knowing the history, the Greeks, they rose up into power. So the Greeks start fighting the Persians and the Medes. So as they getting it on, they fighting, we like, well, hey, we gonna let y'all handle that, and we just gonna take our ponchos and our little stuff when we gone, right? So we decided, like, as the nation of as the government of Persia was falling and the Greece was coming into power, we used that opportunity to escape. You know what I'm saying? And just like how oftentimes stuff like that happens when a nation is getting conquered, the citizens, they oftentimes will run to other nations to save themselves, right? So in this case, we were the slaves, or the second class citizen slaves, and as they were fighting each other, we took that opportunity and just read it. It says, but they took this counsel among themselves, that they could leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. Right? So they like, man, let's get up out of here. Let's go to another country where never mankind dwelt. And where is this place that never mankind dwelt? That would be this place called America. So this place was a wilderness before people came over here. Geologists would tell you that it was forests everywhere, trees everywhere, right? When they came over here, right? That's where the legend of Paul Bunyan starts from, because he was chopping down trees and all that stuff, right? And it says, never where mankind dwelt. Then there's a lot of you can read in Kings, and I believe in Solomon, in the Kings and Chronicles. King Solomon, he had a tin mine over here in America, right? And he had the people of Tyre, that was basically, he kind of hired them as our navy and stuff. And they, the history of the people of Tyre, they was big on trading with other nations. They was very rich, during that time, because they had the boats. They had the durable boats that can sail around the world, and they was going to different places, right? And so they were going to mine the tin for Solomon's, his tin mines that he had over here, right? There are stories of Egyptian monks, having residue of cocaine in their nostrils, and cocaine is only found on this side of the world, right? So we had access and went through here, but we never actually lived here, right? And then stories about Mansa Musa brother that came over here, right? So we knew about the land, but nobody never dwelt here, right? This was called the New World, right? Because we knew about that half of the world, right? This part is called the fourth part of the earth, right? Because during that time, the earth was known to three parts of the earth. It was Europe, Asia, and Africa, right? So then, Americas became the fourth part of the earth, right? So it says, and those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land, and which came out of their own land in the time of Hosea, the king whom Salmanasseh, the king of Assyria, had led away captive, and he carried them over the waters. So they came into another land, and they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen. So they said, hey, let's get up out of here and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt, and they might keep their statutes which they were never kept in their own land, and they enter into the Euphrates. So now they enter into the Euphrates, right? Y'all probably can't see this map on my wall, but I have a map of the land. So they enter into the Euphrates. So as they travel down the Euphrates, right? They came into the Arabian Sea, right? Then they travel around Africa. That they follow that current that goes around the bottom of South Africa. And it says this. It says, and the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood. So now if you understand, our Northern Kingdom brothers, especially our Issacharite brothers, right? Our Mexican brothers. The Aztecs, right? The Azteca, that means the keeper of time. One of the spiritual gifts that our Issachar brothers have, the Mexican brothers have, is their ability to read the stars. What we would call astrology, to be able to understand the stars and stuff. That's how a lot of times we knew when to go to war, because our Issachar brothers, they would read the stars and be like, all right, it's time. The Most High is with us. Just go get them, right? So they understood how to, they understand those things. That was the spiritual gift that the Most High gave them. So now we're not, although with that being said, we're not supposed to, be, worship other stars and be like zodiac freaks like how some of us are. But that was, one of the spiritual gifts. So it says, and the Most High shows signs, it says, and they might keep their statutes, and they enter into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood. Meaning, because when you understand, once you get down at the bottom of Africa, South Africa, that's very treacherous waters right there. It's very dangerous passing through there if you don't know the correct, part to be, the pass through, right? Because you have the mixture of hot and cold. You have Antarctica down there, that's ice. Then you have Africa, which is hot. Then if you know anything about weather, hot and cold air mixed, that's kind of that creates certain weather phenomena, right? So the water is very choppy coming around there. So, but it says, for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood. So he kept the water still for them, so they was able to ride that current that naturally goes around Africa, right? That's super fast current, right? And it says, hold still the flood till they were passed over. So as they passed over that little dangerous stretch of that Atlantic Ocean right there, it says until they pass over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And this is how we know that it's talking about America, because we know from that, in those days, to travel, it took a year and a half. That's how long it took Christopher Columbus to travel. From there to here, it took him a year and a half. A full trip for Christopher Columbus was 3 years, right? And the Bible also talk about when Solomon used to send his people out, how they will be gone for a year and a half, and it took them it was a 3-year journey, a round year trip, right? So then of course this place is identified, hold on, and it says where that, and it says for the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And the same region is called Ashraf, right? And when you look at that word Ashraf in the Jewish Encyclopedia, Bible Dictionary, it tells you that it is identified as America, right? That's how Christopher Columbus found our brothers and sisters over there, because he read this book. When you read the story of Christopher Columbus, when you see the movie Christopher Columbus, he goes to the queen and them and says, "Hey, look, I know where the northern kingdom of Israel is, you know, and the book of Ezra tell us where they're at, and I know how to find them." He wasn't going around looking for whatever they say that I mean, maybe, you know, that was on the agenda, but this is what he was on right here, and he found them, right? Then it says, For through that country there was great way to go, namely of a year and a half, in the same region is called Ashraf. Then dwelt they there until latter time, and now when they shall begin, to come. So so they, dwelling in North America into the latter days, right? And so we didn't come by no illegal means, nothing like that. We didn't come unaliving people and stealing and stuff, right? We came escaping, our persecution that was going on from the Assyrians, and, took our opportunity to escape while they was going to war with the Greeks and came over here. Might have had thousands of years before these people even thought about it, right? So who is the illegals, right? You understand? Right? Let's get Deuteronomy real quick. And that's the thing, it's like, it's crazy. But the Most High said it would be like this, right? For our people, because we had, didn't keep our end of the bargain. We didn't keep the commandments like he instructed us to do. So he said he's going to send these wicked, nations against us, right? Let's get this real quick. Deuteronomy 28 real quick. Let's start at 15 real fast. And it says, "It shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments and his statutes which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee." Right? And that's what's been happening to our people since we've been on this side of the world. Since the Portuguese, the Spaniards, the British, the French, the Americans, the English, since they came over here, the Dutch, all of them, right? It been, it been bad, right? It been a curse. So let's get right here. Let's go. Let's start at 32. Let's go to 32. Matter of fact, let's start at 30. So it says, Deuteronomy 28 and 30 says, "And thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her, and thou shalt build a house, but thou shalt not dwell therein." So now, we got to understand, these curses these punishments that God put on us until the day that Christ come back and redeem us, right? They're, cylindrical, meaning they return. It's not like a once in a lifetime thing. They're a reoccurring thing amongst our people. Now, from verse 15 all the way down to 68 is a whole list of things that God is going to do to us whenever he gets angry to us. Sometimes they, and not all the time they all happen at once. Some, and not all the time that all 12 tribes are going through every last one of these things at the same time. But best believe that all 12 tribes are experiencing these things at one point in time, right? And so it says, "And thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her." So just think about this, right? Just think about our Latino brothers, our Hispanic brothers, that's getting kidnapped at the border or from their jobs, at their homes and all that stuff. And they got families here. So now they forced to leave their family. So after a while, that woman, those kids that they left, after a while, she's going to end up finding her another man to lie with. Now the family is broken, because of the policies that these people have put into place. It says, "Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou should not dwell in it. And that's happens all the time. We build up their society, we build up, you know, their infrastructure, but then they force us out of it after we built it. They're like, all right, thank you. All right. Then they put up a sign that says no Mexicans and no blacks and no dogs after we build it for them, right? Then it says, thou shalt plant a vineyard and shall not gather the grapes thereof, right? And that's what happened constantly, right? You know, the more we work, the harder, the more money we got to pay out, and because they want to tax us for this or that, right? Hold on. $17. Okay, no, that ain't what I want. But so it says what does it say? It says yeah, thou shalt plant a vineyard and thou shalt not gather the grapes thereof, right? And like I said, so we don't prosper from the work that we do, Then it says, thy ox shall be slain before thy eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thy ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and thou shalt not restore to thee. And that's what happened when they came over here. They killed 200,000 buffaloes, right? They starved the Native Americans out, right? And they took all the cattle, right? And so that's what happened, when they came over here, right? Then it says, thy sons and thy daughters should be given to another people. And that's what happens too. So these people they deported, they're not even sending them back to the country that they came from. They're sending them to anywhere, wherever plane going out of this country, that's where you're going, right? That's what they on, right? It says, thy sons and thy daughters should be given to another people, and thy eyes shall look and fell for longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. And there's no might in their hands, no might in nobody's hands to stop it, Nobody's actually really trying to stop it. Yeah, they got some lawsuits, you got people complaining, but nobody's really stopping. I found this interesting. I saw something. Now, California, from my last understanding of California supposed to be this super liberal state. You know what I'm saying? They went to war with Trump his first term. Remember they blocked the man from coming to the they rioted when the man went there, right? So super liberal state, right? That's what we thinking, right? They got basically like a profiling law where if you look Mexican, you talk Mexican, you sound Mexican, then nigga you Mexican and we shipping you out of here, right? Basically racial and profiling, right? And I was kind of taken back when I found that out, because I'm like, I knew that law exists. Not that I didn't know that law exists. I thought it was like Arizona, when I first heard about it, like Arizona, I was thinking. I didn't know California had it. So it's like a place that's supposed to be like liberal like California, right? I mean, come on now. I mean, do I have to say it? I mean, can we say, if it's safe to say that it's not just a few, can we at least say it got to be half, right? Because think about it. This is America. I make this, I say this all the time. This is America, the system of democracy, where they vote on things to be law. So for something to be law, that means the majority have to vote on it. So for them to have that law on the California books, that means the majority feel that way, right? That's just mathematics, right? That's not personal, right? That's what the math tell us. in the system that they use, which is democracy, where they vote on things, right? You can't get a law into, to pass unless it's the majority that believe in that law, right? So think about that. Then it says, thy sons and thy daughters should be given unto another people, and thy eyes should look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hand. And there wasn't no might in our hands, and there's still no might in our hands. They want to come and take your child for whatever reason. What you gonna do? Right? You can't do nothing. A lot of us don't even got enough money to even fight it, So you can't do nothing. And it says, but they want to label us the criminals, right? And it says, the fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always. And that's what they've been doing, keeping the hammer down, keeping a foot on our neck for the last 500 years since they've been over here. They will be a fool to let go. For anybody thinking that, a change gonna come, oh yes it is, right? You foolish to believe so, right? Because that's not how this works, right? That's not their history, right? They run shit till the wheels fall off. That's what they do, right? They rock it until they can't rock it no more, right? That's what they do, right? They that guy that has that favorite shirt, that wear that shirt all the time until it has holes in it, right? Until it's tearing off their body. Okay? They will never leave, right? Never ever. That's not their MO. History doesn't tell us that. It says, and it said, boom, boom, boom. And the Lord, okay, it jumped down to 36. And the Lord shall bring thee and thy king, which shall set over thee, into a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there should serve other gods, wood and stone. So they took our mighty men and brought them down and made us serve their gods, right? Even when they were trying to assimilate the Native Americans, assimilate our Hispanic and Latino brothers, they forced them into that Catholicism, that filthy, nasty, dirty, stinky, grapey religion that like to touch children in places, right? They forced them into that, right? So, and forced us into, following, their religions, all that, right? And it says, and thou should be astonished, be astonishment, a proverb and a byword among all nations, whether the Lord God should lead thee. So, and that's what happened to our people. Well, no matter what country we at, they all have a derogatory term for us, right? They call our Hispanic brothers wetbacks, spicks, different names, right? They call us niggers, porch monkeys, all these things, right? And the Bible says that we're going to be called these different names, and we're going to be made fun of and ridiculed in these different nations, right? And that's not the first time. Let's get this really quick. This is New Testament. This is Acts chapter 13, verse 1. And it says, now these are the disciples of Christ, right? They didn't have no respect for the disciples of Christ neither. They said this. And now there was in the church that was at Antioch certain prophets and teachers, and Barnabas and Simeon that was called nigger. Yes, it said that. They called him nigger, which means black, right, in the Latin. And it says, and Lucius Cyrene and Manian, which had been brought up with Herod and Tetras and Saul. right? So they even called the disciples nigger, right? That's in the Bible, right? So let's get let's get Jeremiah real quick. Let's get Jeremiah 17 real quick. Jeremiah 17 and 4. And it says, "And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies, in a land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in my anger, which shall burn forever." So God said, all right, since y'all don't want to, get down with the program, Israelites, I'm going to send y'all to this different land where y'all going to serve your enemies in a land y'all know not, which is we know to be America, right? And it's, and that's what we've been doing. It says, we will discontinue from our heritage, meaning our culture, our names, our language, the way we dress, right? That's why we speak English and they speak, and our other brothers speak Spanish, right? Because we discontinue from our heritage and our culture and our name. And it says, "Thus saith the Lord, cursed be the man that trusts in men, and make his flesh his arm, and those and whose heart depart from the Lord." And that's what our people have done. They had taught us to trust in them, right? That's why we show up to these voting booths and hoping that they're going to make a change, right? And fix our lives, right? That's why we, look at certain politicians, or we look at certain religious leaders and think that they're going to help us, right? But these people don't want to help us. That's not their job, right? Their job is to keep us exactly where we've been at for the last 500 years, right? Like, it's very irritating to me every time I hear, oh, first black person to do this, or first black woman to do this, or first black man to do this. And everybody be celebrating, right? But it's like, okay, if this was supposed to be this perfect country, right, and equality and all that stuff, it shouldn't be no first black this and first black that, right? It should be a normal thing, right? But the fact that it's not normal, we have to say those things, right? Because, we look at it as accomplishments, but that's their way of slowly assimilating us into their, society and how they, want us to be and, and operate within, right? And that's where the friction is coming in, because we're looking at it as, hey, we're accomplishing things, and they're looking like, you still got more to do, right? We got to still do some other stuff. So then it says, thus said the Lord, cursed be the man that trusts in men and make his flesh his arm, and whose depart from the Lord. And that's what we have done. We have departed from the Most High because we choose to trust in their institutions, their philosophies, their way of life, thinking that they got the plan, right? We say this all the time. If a white person don't say it, sadly, a lot of times our people don't want to believe it, right? We act like what they say is law, like they haven't been lying from the beginning, right? That's good. See, Psalms 44 and 14 says, Thou makest us a byword among the heathen, shaking of the head among the people. So they, so that's what they do. They call us different names. They call us these, disrespectful names. Then they, the shaking of the head, talking about, it's a shame how those black people are. It's a shame how those Mexicans people are. Why don't they, do this? Why they want to come to America? Why don't they stay where they at, not knowing that this country was theirs until it was stolen from them, right? So it says, thou make us a byword among the heathen, and a shaking of the head among the people. Meaning people look at us like, man, it's a damn shame how those people are. Those black and browns, they're criminals, What are they doing, right? What did Donald Trump say? And I assume some of them are good people, right? So, and that's how the world look at us, right? And the Bible is telling us that's how they look at us. Because we are the people of God. This is not a universal book for everybody to pick up and read and understand it. It's only for his people. And it's telling us how to navigate dealing with these people, right? It says, thou hast made us a byword among the heathen, and a shaking of the head among the people, right? And that's how they treat us, disrespectfully, right? So even Oprah Winfrey, when she, travel, she get treated disrespectfully. A lot of stories of her, not being allowed to go into certain stores when she in France and stuff because of the racism, right? And it says, let's jump down to 41. And it says, thou shalt beget, let's jump down to 41. It says, thou shalt beget sons and daughters. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. And that's what happened, right? On that plantation, when the children was born, Master took them kids and sold them off, right? And to this day, right now, when, our Hispanic brothers, they was taking kids out of school, in California. They was snatching the Hispanic kids out of school, taking them, right? Parents didn't know. They come to pick up their kids, thinking they got, about to come pick up their kid from school. Their kid got kidnapped by ICE. That's crazy, right? So it says, thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not yet enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. And again, this is how we're reading about the people of Israel and the punishment that God is going to put on them until Christ come back, because they did not keep the commandments, right? Now, the so-called people with the little stuff hanging from the side and they got the little saucers sitting on top of their head, this never happened to them. None of the stuff we're reading ever happened to those people. If anything, they were causing these things to happen to us, right? So it says, then it said, boom, boom, boom. It jumped down to 43. And it says, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. And that's what happened. Once these people start, coming amongst our people, again, it says we got down very low and they came up very high, to the point that now they're, ruling over us economically, systemically and all that, right? And it says, and he shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. And he shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Right? And that's what's been happening. They've been, running this thing, since they got over here. And they're not going to let it go. Right? And you think they're just going to just give it up one day. And be like, you know what? You guys are right. Let's make this all equal. Nobody does that. Right? Let's take the fact that they are, homicidal maniacs, right? Let's take that out of the equation. But nobody would do that. If you have power and all that stuff, and you're able to do whatever you want, and most people are not going to be willing to share that power with the person that they just got done dominating, right? Because, what would that look like? So nobody would do that. That's why oftentimes they live in that fear. Whether they like it, believe it or not, or speak about it. They live in that constant fear of one day, the niggers is going to rise up. They're going to do something. Because they know what they would do. Because they have done it countless times throughout society for less reasons, right? Remember the Boston Tea Party, right? They did that over tea, right? They went crazy because they didn't want to pay I think 10 cents or something, 5 cents, I can't remember exactly. And they did that with tea, right? Imagine. They did things for less, right? So you gotta understand that. Then it says, moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee until thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he command thee this day. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder upon thy seed forever. So this is how we know who the Israelites are. These are one of the ways on how we know who the Israelites are. Because these punishments that God said he's going to put on his people until the end of time forever, which roughly translates to when Christ comes back and redeem his people, we should be able to see these things being, exhibit on the people of God, right? And when we look around the world, when we read this chapter and the things that he said is going to do to them, it only applies to the Black, Hispanic, and Native American people, right? Not the ones with the little curly thing hanging on the side that like to rock like this, like they got some type of nervous condition and got a little hat on top of their head. Not those guys, right? So it says, and shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. So meaning, this is how we're going to identify ourselves. Because what is a sign? A sign is an identifying mark, right? So if you're looking for a McDonald's, you're going to look for the golden arches, right? If you're looking for a Walmart, you're going to look for that Walmart sign, right? So if you're looking for the Israelites, you're going to look for who are oppressed, cursed, in the ghetto, and getting, and living in the worst conditions, and second-class citizens, right? And treated, unfairly, oppressed around the world. You're going to look around for those type of people, right? Because it says, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, right? So this is why our people go through these things, because, again, these curses they come around, and again, some of us, we all go through this. And we all go through it in various times, and some of these curses are nationwide. Some of these curses are like things that we go through individually as people, right? And so again, let's get keep reading. Then it says, because thou serve not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and gladness of heart for abundance of all things, therefore thou shalt serve thy enemies, which the Lord thy God shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst, and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck. And that yoke of iron is those shackles that our people used to wear, until he has destroyed thee. And they have destroyed our people mentally and spiritually, to the point that we don't think that America can do no wrong. That's why a lot of us would side with the ICE raids and think it's okay, it's cool, right? But it says, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the ends of the earth, swift as the eagle flieth. So now, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. And again, if you understand the history of Edom, right? And we know Edom is the so-called Caucasian. Their chief deity, one of their chief deities, is a half man, half eagle. It's a man with an eagle face, right? And so their representation throughout the annals of time, no matter what they call themselves, they always find a way to throw that ego up in there, right? So it's just like this picture of old Jay-Z music video from the late 90s, early 2000s. You're going to always see Dame Dash in the background no matter what, throwing up the rock, right? Always squeezing the little diamond up in there somewhere, right? So that's how these people operate. No matter where they, America got the eagle, the bald eagle as their little emblem. Hitler had it as his little thing as their little emblem. Greece had it. The Romans had it. Edom had it. It always been their thing. Again, so this picture Dame Dash in the late 90s in a Jay-Z video, always squeezing the rock sign in the camera, right? So Obadiah 1:4 says, although thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and thou set thy nest among the stars, hence will I bring thee down, said Yahweh. So again, these people as a nation, their chief deity was the eagle. Then they set their nest among the stars. That's why they like to live in cliffs and that you go into their old ancient civilization, how they used to live in the caves and cliffs and stuff like that. And that's why they nowadays they build sky risers and these little skyscrapers and stuff, because they love that higher environment. It gives them that, make them feel like their ancestors looking down. Because again, they look at the eagle, and what does the eagle do? The eagle sits up high and looks down on their prey and chooses what they're going to attack, right? So it says, thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and thou set thy nest among the stars. So, and he set his nest among the stars by putting, by being, putting himself over the people of Israel. And the stars in this case is talking about the stars of Israel, the sons of Israel, the tribes of Israel, right? And so by putting himself over the Lord's people, that gave him a false sense of security, of dominance, that he could rule over God's people and rule this earth, as he been, doing for the last few centuries, right? Then it says, if a thief come to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they not have stolen till they have enough? If great gatherers come to thee, would they not leave some grapes? How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? Right? So meaning these guys steal everything, right? They don't leave nothing. They are here to steal, right? And it's saying like when great gatherers, when they grab the grapes off the vine, in the Hebrew custom, if the grapes fall to the ground, you leave them there. You don't pick them up. You leave them there for the poor. But they're saying that they will grab the grapes off the vine and the grapes that fell on the ground. They're not leaving nothing. They take it all, right? And it's saying like, how is these people is getting away with this stuff? Why is nobody having figured it out? That's why it says, how are these things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? Meaning like, nobody figured out they MO, what they do, right? Let's get Job real quick. Let's get Job 30. So Job 30 says this. It says, but now they that are younger than me have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to sit with my dogs of my flock. So now this is Job talking about these Edomites. And Job said, I would not even allow these people to sit with my dogs. Where I keep my dogs at, I won't even allow them to be where my dog's at. And if you know, you know. Right? And it says, yeah, a word too might, the strength of their hands might profit me, and in whom my old age was perished. For want of famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former times in desolate wastes. So Job is giving a little history on these people. Like, look, these people, they were and they was impoverished people, right? You know, fleeing in the wilderness, little nomadic people, right? In the former desolate, because they lived in Petra in the mountain area, Jordan area, right? And it says, who cut up mellows by the bushes and jumper roots for meat, meaning they was eating, bushes and roots of, the bushes and, just living, not living right. You know what I'm saying? Lord, no, I ain't living right. Lord, no, I gotta change my life. Right? Wasn't living right. Living in squalor. Right? Being exactly how God created them to be. Right? And it says, were driven from among men, they cried after them after a thief. So now, this kind of getting into a little bit, this is when the Babylonians kind of rose up. So the Babylonians got into power. So then, of course, they started warring with everybody, conquering everything. So they expelled the Edomites from Edom. A lot of them, some of them came, blended in with us. A lot of them, went to that's when they end up going north to the Caucasus Mountains. And then they start settling there before they start, regrouping and went further into Europe and did the conquering up there. But Nebuchadnezzar, got them up out of there, right? So, and it says, they were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as a thief, right? Meaning we chasing them up out of there. Just like how, remember on Boys in the Hood, when a boy walked by and snatched a doughboy chain, and they all chased after him when he tried to run. They all chased him down, right? So that's how the nations were chasing after these people to get them up out of here. So it says, they cried after them as a thief, to dwell in the cliff of the valleys, in the caves of the earth, and in the rocks. So that's their natural habitat. They like to dwell in those caves and the cliffs and the rocks and stuff like that. Again, that's why they build all these skyscrapers and these little high buildings and put all this concrete and pile it all up high and like to live and go rock climbing and look down and stuff and take pictures. They like it, right? It makes them feel closer to their ego guy. I forgot his name. Then it says, among the bushes they brave, right? And if you understand, this is so again, we gotta understand who we dealing with here, right? These are, the people it's so easy that a caveman can do it, right? You gotta understand who we dealing with. So it says, among the bushes they brave, meaning they made animal noises, right? And I reference this all the time, because a lot of times when they get drunk, they go to a Cubs game, right? They get drunk. They tap right back into their nature, and they be making animal noises when they get drunk. That's why I get scared, especially when they go yeehaw. If I hear a yeehaw, I'm definitely out of there. If I hear a yeehaw, I know the next word is let's go get a rope, right? So I'm out, right? So it says, among the bushes they brave, meaning they make animal noises. The little. Because, and there's another example. This brother, he had sent me a video of this family that was living in like the Appalachian Mountains somewhere, right, in Kentucky, somewhere, Virginia, somewhere, right, in the mountains. It's a family that looked like they haven't seen other people in months and years. It looked like if they do see other people, they probably eat them, right? And it was very, had like incest stuff going on, so they were kind of like inbred and very not up to par. It was very medically not smart, right? I think I can say it like that without saying the R word. But yeah, that's what they was, right? One of them, couldn't speak. He was like, had to been like in his 40s, one of their siblings died and they buried them on the side of the house. It's just crazy, right? But, and I couldn't help but to think, like, and just seeing the whole thing and just remind me of this chapter. And I just like, I mean, that ain't nothing but normal. We look at them because they done shaved, right? They got a little suit on, you know, and we think things changed. Nah, it didn't change. It just got cleaned up, and they learned a few fancy words, right? And they learned how to hold a fork, right? Then it says, among the bushes they brave, under the nettles they gathered together. They were children of fools. I know everybody like, dang, that was very mean, what you just said. Again, you know what we do here. We don't, I may say, what we say what the Bible say, right? We just try to make it make sense. It says, among the bushes they brave, under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools. So what I just stated, that wasn't wrong, because God said they were children of fools. Yeah, children of base men. When I called them cavemen earlier, I wasn't wrong. Because what is a base man? A base man is a caveman, right? And it says they were children of fools, base men. They were the valor of the earth, meaning the scum of the earth. That's how they was the worst. I mean, we make jokes about them all the time, right? About how when we had to civilize them, you know, how uncivilized they was during the Dark Ages, right? So, says they were children of fools, children of base men, children of the cavemen, right? They were the valor of the earth. And remember, back when we was kids, they used to act like the cavemen were so stupid. That's why even with the commercial, with it's so easy, even a caveman can do it. You know, that's why that commercial was so funny. But, you know, even growing up as a kid, they always made it seem like the cave people were so primitive, right? They just couldn't get right, couldn't figure things out. But then as they researched and the truth came out that they were the cavemen, they were the Neanderthals. Then they said, you know, they were very smart. You know, they did this, they did that. Then the whole narrative changed on how very intellectual these people were and all the stuff that they did. But what did the Bible say? The Bible said they were children of fools. Yeah, children of base men. They were the valor of the earth. Disgusting. Right? That's what we're dealing with, right? And they had the audacity, the caucasity to operate how they operate, right? And when they are the original illegals, when they are the fugitives, right? Fugitive. Hold on one second. Fugitive. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Now here we go, right here. It said Genesis 4:12. It says, and when thou tillest the ground, it should henceforth yield unto thee her strength. Let me read it right. It says, when thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. right? So, and that's why too they have a hard time with agriculture, right? That's why they have to import what they call labor from Africa, because they have a hard time growing things. That's why they have to bioengineer chemicals for farming, so they can grow stuff and make it grow, because God cursed their abilities to tap into the natural resources of the earth, right? It says it says, when thou tellest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength, a fugitive and a vagabond shall thou be in the earth. And that's what these people are, a fugitive and vagabond. They don't belong nowhere. Okay? They are the only illegal immigrants on this planet right now. Right? Only illegal immigrants. Nature proves that they are the only illegal immigrants. Right? If you understand. So, again, it says, when thou tellest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength, meaning they're not going to be able to, sustain themselves, agriculturally. And it says, and henceforth, it says, and a fugitive and a vagabond thou shalt be. That's why they always changing their identity. They start off in the Bible as Edom, right? Then they go from Edom, then now they want to call themselves, Greeks and Romans, and then it's all these other nationalities that they done came up with throughout the years to hide themselves, because they are the fugitive and vagabonds, and they bear the mark of Cain, right? And they trying to blend in themselves, right? That's why they go to Australia, they're the Australians, right? They go to South America, they're the South Americans. They're the South Africans. They are the Americans. They're the Canadians. They're the Europeans, right? They're everything except for who God called them to be, which is Edom, right? Because it says, a fugitive and a vagabond shall thou be. That's why they're in every country that doesn't belong to them, because a vagabond travels, right? Then it says, let's get let's jump up to verse 64 in Deuteronomy 28, and it says, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all nations from one end of the earth unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, neither which neither thou nor thy father have known, even wood and stone. So through slavery, we were sent to these other nations, following these false, ideologies and so forth, right? To this day. And it says, and thy life should hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear the day and night. And that's what's happening to our Latino brothers and sisters. When they leave out to go out, they got to worry about if ICE going to be wearing, kicking in their door, what I'm saying? They got to go to work. If they going to show up to their job. They can't even go to the Dango Super Bowl, and watch a concert. Or they can't even go to a Bad Bunny concert, period. Bad Bunny don't even want to come to the States because he don't want to get his people locked up for showing up. That's crazy, right? So it says, and thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none insurance of thy life, right? And that's what's going on. They have no insurance. They don't know what tomorrow may bring. Dealing with this administration and how they operate, right? And like I said, it's not anything that they're doing in secret. It's televised, right? It's crazy. It says, in the morning thou shalt would that in the morning thou shalt say, would God it were even. And it says, and at even thou shalt say, would God it were morning. Meaning, like, man, these days is going to be so horrible. This oppression is so bad. We just want the days to speed by. Like, man, I just wish, dang, it's evening now. Damn, I can't wait till tomorrow. Jeez. Then when tomorrow morning comes, damn, I can't wait till nighttime comes for this day to be over. Right? It's just a stressful, this stress to exist in this climate on how, they're operating, right? And moving. And, and we gotta, like I said, we gotta understand that. And we gotta understand that it's not, isolated. Because what I mean isolated is not just, all right, well, they just doing that. No, you better believe they coming for all of us. Because the Bible says that they will make war with the children of God. And we are the children of God, the black, Hispanic, and Native American people. The children of God is not whoever believes in Jesus. That's a goddamn lie, right? Because, we already went through that, right? So that's who the children of God is. The book of Revelation tells us that they're going to make war with us. So I'm going to say shalom, right? Hopefully that was edifying. I'm going to end it right there, though. You know what I'm saying? Because we see how these people operating. And we see who the real criminals are. And we see who the real criminals are, right? We saw the history.
To use
how
this feature, please make sure
nation was built on their
access the internet.
Criminal endeavors, right? What they call the first sin, slavery, all that. This whole place is criminal. And they have the audacity to try to call somebody illegal when they are the only illegals, right? We proved it through history, and the Bible called them illegal, right? So, what are we talking about here? So, I'm going to say shalom and peace to our Latino and Hispanic brothers, you know what I'm saying? The house of Joseph, right? The 10 tribes abroad and the other, in all 12 tribes, right? Because like I said, it's, they coming for all, right? It's not just our Latino brothers. So don't forget, you know what I'm saying? They coming. That's why they brought it into like gang activity. Say, okay, well, immigration, and they start talking about gang activity. You got to understand the fancy code talk in politics that white America use. But I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna say shalom, peace. Hopefully, I was edifying, peace. You know what I'm saying? We out. Yeah. Gotta get some food.
Wartime, niggas love the clout chase. That's the shit they glorify. I don't even try hard. This gangsta shit immortalized. No records of a trace. When your crime is organized, no man is over me. I'm highest in the morning time. Low key in the birds when I cross the state borderlines. Spin your block and horrified. Fuck your bitch, you mortified. I'm standing where you draw the line, nigga. Hold the line. My nuts that